Welcome to the midweek market breakdown, brought to you by AutoTrade.ai. If you want to trade with low fees and fast execution, head on over to www.autotrade.ai or click the link in the description to get started. This week, we're going to be going through 6 crypto pairs. I know at the beginning of the week we only went through 4, but right now in the midweek, we're going to be going through 6. We're going to be going through Bitcoin, Ethereum, Ripple, Doge Coin, Solana, and Cardano. And we're going to see kind of where we think we're going to end up in the next couple of days and what we're looking at in our own personal trading. Once again, this is not trading advice. We're not telling you what to do. Do whatever it is that you want to do. We're just giving our outlook on what the market's telling us. So let's jump right into it. Okay. Right now we have the monthly chart for Bitcoin right in front of us here. And the very first thing that I can see right away is on the monthly chart, this liquidity sweep right there. Busted up against the previous swing high level here and immediately closed back down below it. Now, while I think long term we are actually bullish on Bitcoin, there's always going to be pullbacks in the market. So short term, buy the dips, sell the highs. Right now we're waiting for the dip. That's what we're waiting for. That's on how we're going to be buying Bitcoin coming up in the near future. As for right now though, monthly chart, it did print a doji candle. And with the liquidity sweep, this is an area of interest for potential shorts. Let's go down into the weekly chart here and see if we can see anything. So all I'm seeing on the weekly chart right now is just a range. The weekly chart does not look good at all. You can just see Bitcoin's price is kind of trapped in between support and resistance here, and it's just kind of bouncing. Now, let's drop down into the daily. As for the weekly, there's really not a whole lot going on with the weekly chart right now for us to even want to entertain even a short-term sell position. But let's go down into the daily chart, and now let's take a peek at what the daily chart is showing us here. So last week we actually saw Bitcoin break the previous support, and when it went to retest to form resistance, it failed. So no big deal. If that's the case, typically what we're looking at is we're looking for the price to go back up and fill that range and start testing the resistance area. So we did come back up into an area of resistance past these previous daily swing highs here. But once again, we failed to close above. So remember on the monthly chart, we failed to close above a previous swing high. We actually swept liquidity, and it's looking to push to the downside now. When we drop down into the daily chart, we just got another liquidity sweep right here. So still not looking to get into anything based on the daily chart. And that's simply because we're still within this range. We're still in the range here. As long as we're in this range, we are not looking to take a position. Until we break the range, either bullish or to the bear side here, we're not looking to take a position in Bitcoin at the moment. Now let's look at Ethereum here. We'll start off on the monthly chart once again, just like we did with Bitcoin. Huge indecision candle printed right there. Okay. Let's get this out of the way. Let's remove our drawings from the previous week. Now let's go and take a look. So here's what we're seeing on the monthly chart for Ethereum here. So previous low right here, boom, broke it, closed below without any issue. Now what we're seeing is more of a staggered pullback. Important to keep in mind though, on the monthly chart, that we had high volume to the bearish side. We formed a fair value gap, and now we're pushing back up into that gap. We didn't snap above this previous low, and although we have been making short-term higher highs, higher lows, we are still in the long-term bearish. And right now we're actually in a discounted area on the chart based on this most recent leg to the downside. We can see here, we pull our Fibonacci retracement tool out here. Yeah, we have right past that 50% marker, meaning that now we are in a discounted zone where we can start to look for potential sells here if we get the price action that tells us so. So let's get rid of this Fibonacci retracement here. Let's drop down into the weekly chart. Let's just take a peek and see what this weekly chart's looking like for us. Weekly chart doesn't look too hot right now. There's really not a whole lot going on. We're right above that 50 EMA right there. What I can see on the weekly chart is formed a resistance there. We have a weekly support right here, which we've already rejected one time. So that's been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times this support has been rejected before pushing up. And now it's pushed back down into it, and once again it is rejected. So kind of what we're looking for on the weekly chart here is I want to see something out of this range. Now, the one thing that we did see on the weekly chart that is going to be an area of interest to us if we get to this point is this fair value gap right here. The reason for that is that we have the range support resistance right here above it. We have a weekly fair value gap. We printed a fair value gap, or are on the verge of printing a fair value gap, right after a strong bull leg that clearly had resistance. So let's go down into the daily chart and see how the daily chart looks. Yeah, daily chart is definitely looking bearish at the moment. As stated though, we are still within the weekly range. This is a strong weekly support down here. So until we break this support, we are really not looking to do anything with this chart. If you go into the smaller time frames, you can get intraday trades potentially on this, but I would say targets that we're looking at for the short term at least are going to be right down to this level right there. So that's going to be the 2170 and change level there. Once we get around that area, it's going to get a little bit dicey. There's a lot of support there. I wouldn't be looking to hold anything into that area simply because it might just bust right through the roof. So let's go and take a peek now at Ripple. So right now, Bitcoin and Ethereum, like we're not looking long term. We're really not looking at a whole lot on Bitcoin and Ethereum, I guess in the next 5 days, other than intraday trades. Looking for Ethereum to continue pushing down into the weekly support. That's more of an intraday trade. We're looking at a little bit of a more medium swing trade type of a time frame here, where we can kind of set and forget and we don't have to worry too much about it So let's take a look at Ripple on the monthly chart here. Ripple on the monthly chart, honestly, it's just in this channel. It's in a bull channel right now. All right. We're seeing that. And we're seeing right there. So the biggest thing we're looking at with Ripple is we're seeing this monthly support right here that we've already rejected. And this is a strong area of interest simply because if we were to look, we've already rejected the support once. We already are in a bull channel right now. And until this support and the support of the channel is broken, we're in an uptrend. So if we drop down into the weekly chart, let's see if the weekly chart's giving us any indication of kind of what we're looking at here. Okay. Strong rejection on the weekly chart. If you're not familiar with what the indicator I'm using down here, this is the Williams, I think it's like a fractal. It's one of the Williams fractal indicators. And these little triangles that are on the chart here, that's also a Williams fractal indicator. Use that for a little bit of confluence when we're looking to take positions in the market and whatnot. But one of the biggest things that we're seeing right now is that we're not quite at these lows right here. But what we are seeing is let's see, I'll put this in here. What we are seeing is that the last time the chart was down into this region on the fractal indicator was right here. Was this area right here. So, since we're not quite there, and if we take a line and we line it up with this, last time we were down into this oversold region, you can see we're actually getting further down into the oversold region, and we're pushing right into the bull channel support, and we're pushing into monthly support. This, as long as we can stay above these highs, now we don't want to create, or these lows, sorry, we don't want to create equal lows. As long as we can stay above these lows, we are looking to take it long. But as it sits right now, there's no trade for us. We needed to come back down into the support. I wanted to push off of the support, do a little something like this. I wanted to come down into the support just like this. And then I wanted to push up, ideally break the previous candle high, pull back down, and then we are going to be looking right about here for our targets to go long. Now this is going to be something that we're probably going to want to take on like a daily chart or a 4-hour chart, but just looking at Ripple on the weekly here, we can already see that short term, yeah, we're probably looking to continue pushing bearish until we reach this support zone. And at that point, we are going to be looking at opportunities to get long on Ripple. So now let's open up the daily chart here and let's see what we're looking at on the daily chart. The daily chart is super bearish right now. You know, we're creating lower highs, lower lows, lower highs, lower lows, lower high, lower low. So now what we're seeing is the candles are getting smaller. We're seeing more wick, more rejection on the bottom of the candles here. That's telling us that we're really not getting a whole lot of volume pushing down, but the momentum still is to the bearish side. So we really want to see a momentum shift. And again, much like when we were looking at the weekly chart, what we're looking for on the daily chart here is we'd love for it to push down into the support area and then break out above with some sort of momentum before giving us a little pullback and continuing long. So right now, we're more bearish than anything on Ripple. That being said, there's really not a whole lot of way for it to go to the bear side at this point. So it wouldn't be any kind of a long-term hold or anything like that. If you were to get bearish on Ripple, we're more waiting for long opportunities to start buying. They haven't presented themselves yet. Now let's take a look at Doge Coin. We're going to pull up the monthly chart on Doge Coin here, and let's see what we're looking at on Doge Coin. Doge Coin chart looks like garbage, honestly. What I can see though is that we broke previous swing high, swept liquidity, but we also failed to make a new low after this low right here was printed. So what that's telling me is that as it sits right now, we're actually in a range, but we did fail to produce a new low. And this is on the monthly chart, remember. So there's a lot of time in between these candles. There's a lot of trading to be done in between these candles. But just looking at the monthly chart for direction here, we did not create a new low. But what we did do is actually create a new high. And this was the previous high that we broke above, closed above, snapped back down into. So, because we didn't create a new low, because we swept the previous, we broke through the previous swing high, and we broke through the high that was previous to that, we created a new high. We are now looking for Dogecoin to create a new low, which if it continues forming the way it is right now, this may be a great area for us to be looking for some buys on the daily chart. Right, so right now we're looking at this fair value gap on the weekly chart, or monthly chart, sorry. Let's drop down into the weekly chart here, and let's see what the weekly chart is showing us. So the weekly chart is actually showing us that when we broke that previous high, we broke with a vengeance. For 2 weeks after we closed above that high, we actually continued on above the high before breaking down in. It actually took 4 weeks for us to close back down below that high. So what that's telling me is that momentum has shifted more towards the bullish side. Now, the big thing to keep in mind here is that we haven't really seen strong momentum continuing. Now, it's not a huge deal for us, being that this is a weekly chart, right? Well, obviously, we have weekly support right here. We're sitting right at it. We're also sitting in a monthly fair value gap here. Okay. The biggest thing that we're going to be looking at now is I don't want to touch this chart until we get above the previous week's high. Until we get above that high, I'm not looking for shorts, because to me, the market structure is showing me that this market structure has shifted bullish instead of bearish. But for the short term right now, there's a bit of indecision. I mean, you can see for the last 3.5 weeks since about here, we haven't really done a whole lot. It's just been a lot of whiplashing, right? And that's how we're going to blow accounts. That's how we're going to, end up with elevated blood pressures and heart rates because we're just whiplashing up and down. We're looking for times that we can get into the markets where it's set and forget. We don't really care. Momentum's on our side. We're looking to let it run. So, as stated before, this right here, let's see if I get a drawing tool out here. Okay, so let's say this right here, previous weekly high. We need to get above this zone before I'm going to personally be looking to potentially get on the trend and ride it higher. Because after we get above that high, we're looking to get right up to here. We want to get right up to this area right here. And let's drop down into the daily chart, see how the daily chart's looking, because that's predominantly where we'd be looking for these trades to set up for us. So as stated, right, we're in a bit of a range right now on the daily chart. The daily chart looks terrible to us, but we need to get above that previous week's high, which is marked right here, all right? Once we get above this high right here, we'd be looking for something like this. Boom. Above the high. Then we're going to want to see some sort of a pullback before continuing higher, where this is going to be our first target right here. Extended targets past that, obviously we'd be looking at 10.5 cents. But as it sits right now, first targets are going to be this first premium array. As it sits on Doge Coin, we're not looking for anything right now. It needs to break that previous weekly high. If it can break the previous weekly high and it can sustain price above that high, well, then we're going to be looking for opportunities in price action to let us get long and then ride out the wave. Okay, on to the next one. Let's take a look at Cardano. Now, this is a new chart for us. We didn't break this chart down in, the market recap on last Sunday, the previous midweek market recap, and we didn't break it down on the previous week's market breakdown, which was the first market breakdown. But this is one of the ones that we like to look at, myself as well as the other founders of Auto Trade. Talk about this chart, we trade this pair. This is the one that we figured that you guys might want to be looking at as well. If we're looking at the monthly chart here, let me just get this pen tool off here. So if we're looking at this monthly chart, the biggest thing that we're looking at right now is one monthly support formed right here. Okay, we broke out from a previous monthly resistance. Then if we're looking, boom, that's the previous swing high. After we broke this previous swing high right here, or after we set this previous lower high, we failed to make a new low and sustain that low, right? We didn't close below the previous low, which is an issue. Even though we did wick below it, we didn't close below it. So that tells us market structure looks like it's shifting. Perfect. So now what are we seeing? Well, we're seeing the previous swing high getting absolutely violated by a huge momentum candle here, which is awesome. We love to see it. That's a pretty nice bullish close. It's a little bit wicky at the top for my liking, but given the momentum behind it, we'll take it. The other thing to keep in mind as well is that we also have a fair value gap right here on a market structure shift. The significance of the fair value gap on the market structure shift is that is going to be like a discounted area in a bullish trend, right? So that's price action that price is going to want to come back into, pull some liquidity out before going higher, right? So when we're looking at that, we're saying, beautiful, everything is lining up for us. What do we have? Failed to make a new low, failed to close below the previous low, right? That's 2. Broke the previous swing high, closed above the previous swing high. That's 3. 4. We've already retested the previous swing high once, closed above it. That helped us form our monthly fair value gap. We're looking for it to push down into that fair value gap area one more time, but we're already at 4 confluences on the monthly chart for us to go bullish. And if we go bullish, obviously we're going to be looking to get in on a daily chart. So our targets are going to be a little bit more conservative because we're going to be taking it as a trade and not necessarily as an investment, right? Even though we do hold cryptos as an investment, we also do trade the cryptos as well. The first targets right away. Oops, that's the wrong drawing tool. First targets right away. We're looking right here. Boom. That's what we're looking to see. So we're looking for it to push down right into this area, push up into here. Now let's drop down into the weekly chart and let's see if the weekly chart's going to give us any indication of whether or not we should be expecting this pullback sooner or later. So okay, weekly chart looks good. What I can see on the weekly chart here is that this previous low that was set was traded back down into before it closed above. That's telling us that they were sweeping liquidity there, and we're looking to actually continue higher. Now, this current week's candle doesn't look that great, but as long as we can realistically stay above this previous low right here, we're waiting for long opportunities. Additionally, keep in mind that we're going to be pushing down into this monthly fair value gap, and we're also above the 50 EMA, which is always a nice confluence. That's 5 confluences now, telling us this might be a decent long opportunity coming up for us. Let's go down into the daily chart right here, and let's just take a peek at what we're looking at. So on this daily chart, we can see obviously we're doing lower highs, lower lows, lower high, lower low. No problem. But as long, this is a previous swing high right here. Let me pull out this pen tool here so I can mark it for you. We broke this previous swing high right there. Okay, we broke above it. Now what I'm looking for is I do not want to see a new swing low printed. If I do see a new swing low printed and it's not followed by an immediate snapback in momentum on the daily chart, well, we may be continuing bearish from there. If what we do see is price push down into this area, right? Oh, that's terrible drawing. Push down into this area. And then immediately the next candle, we're seeing it snap back right above it. That's what we want to see. Then we can start looking, okay, let's see if we can get in and we can ride it all the way. Oh, that squiggly line. But we're looking to ride it all the way back up to that premium array right there. Right? So right now, everything to us is showing bullish is going to probably be the best play on this pair in the short term. We're not going to be looking for any kind of sustained selling pressure. What we're looking for now is we're looking to see exhaustion. We're looking to see liquidity grabs. We're looking to see price breaking previous daily highs, closing above those highs. This is the type of stuff that we're going to be wanting to see on the price action for us to start getting long in these pairs. Okay. Let's take a look at Solana. We'll pull up the monthly chart here. And honestly, the monthly chart on Solana doesn't look that good at all. So, reasoning for this is, I think in the short term on Solana, based on what this monthly chart is looking like, we're going to be looking at a lot of selling pressure. And main targets for this selling pressure, personally, I'm going to be looking at this area right here. This is the area I'm looking at for selling pressure to get down to. I'm looking for it to get back down into this previous monthly low. If you look, you don't have to look too close, but if you do look closely, you'll see one thing right here. We have a monthly fair value gap that printed right there. So ideally, yeah, price is looking to pull back into that zone before continuing bullish. We have huge momentum for the last 3 months, or for the 3 months before last month, right? So I guess it would be, what would this be? So it's October, November, December. Perfect, right? So September, October, November. Really, really nice bullish pressure after this huge bear run, which is really nice to see. The other thing to keep in mind, though, is that we are still coming off of the bear run here. So even though we have created a higher high, we still haven't broken above this huge liquidity zone. So now let's just take a peek at the weekly chart here and see what we're looking at. The weekly chart's looking nice. Honestly, I must say, the weekly chart is looking nice. So the biggest thing, boom, another fair value gap right there on the weekly. Touched into that fair value gap, and we rejected it, right? So now we're seeing, boom, there's a weekly support formed right there. So what we're looking at, we wanted to pull back a little bit. We wanted to pull back a little bit because our first target is going to be right here for buys. Okay. But first, we need to get into a discounted zone. Right now, we're not sitting in a discount. Right now, we're kind of floating in no man's land. I mean, if you get in here, it's really hard to determine risk. I mean, if I were getting in here, I want to cover this area right here. Like, I want to make sure that my stops are down here. That's a kind of not the greatest trade to take, obviously, because we're looking at a 1-to-1 risk-reward ratio. Really not worth it for us to take a trade with that kind of a risk to reward. So let's drop down into the daily chart and let's see what the daily chart's giving us here. Okay, daily chart is looking better. Perfect. So the daily chart's looking better, but with that being said, we still haven't formed a higher high after the short-term bearish trend, right? It is concerning for us, but because we've coupled it with our monthly and weekly areas of value, and we're looking for bullish signals, there are some really nice bullish confluences here for us to go off of, right? So now what do we have on the daily chart? Let's just take a peek and let's dive into it a little bit more. So on the daily chart, you can see we really busted out here. We broke past the previous low, closed past it. That previous low is right here. Okay, boom. Previous low. We closed right past the previous low and snapped back right above it and remained above it too. We did wick down into it. We rejected it. And then what did we get from there? Well, we got 4 days straight of buying pressure. Really nice to see. So now the biggest thing that we're looking for is, okay, it seems that we just completely reversed that huge bearish momentum with the same sort of momentum pushing up. When is it time for us to potentially be getting in for a long? And I'm looking at one area in particular right now, and that's this area right here. Boom. Right there. Once I get back down into this area right here, I pull this up, boom, go like this, go like this, boom. Once I get back down into this area right here, I am then going to be looking personally on the lower time frames, probably on about the 4 hour or so. I'm going to be looking for opportunities to get long on this pair. First targets for us are going to be right here. Previous high. First target. Next target. Right here. Boom. Next premium array. Third target finally being that high up there. Why we wait for these types of pullbacks is because if I get into a chart, if I get into a trade right here, right, I am now looking at, first I'm going to need to, I'm going to need to cover myself. I'm going to get below this support right here. I am now looking at minimum a 2-to-1 risk to reward from this area right here. And what do I have as my confluence? Well, I have a weekly fair value gap. I have a monthly fair value gap pushing up. I have another weekly fair value gap printed. That's 2 confluences right there, price action wise. Third one, we broke the resistance for the bearish channel. We're pulling back into another fair value gap on the daily chart. 4, 5, we have weekly support that has been respected. 6, we're above the 50 EMA. That's 6 bullish confluences for us to say, hey, we're most likely better off taking longs from this area than we would be taking shorts. Now, if we want to add even one more confluence to make it a nice 7, we're going to be in a premium array. Look at that. We come right down into this fair value gap area there. We're between the 50 and the 61.8 Fibonacci retracement. It doesn't really get much better than that when we're looking for confluences to try to take a market up. We have lots of room to move. This is only short-term market outlooks. We're not necessarily looking to trade on a yearly time frame. Like, we're looking, okay, what are we going to do in the next week, 2 weeks? That's going to influence our decisions right now, right? So that's it for today's video. This was the midweek market recap brought to you by AutoTrade.ai. Once again, if you're looking to trade with fast execution and low fees, head over to www.autotrade.ai. Also, if there's any charts that you want us to look at, put them down in the comments or send them to us on Instagram. Send it to us on TikTok. Email them to us. really doesn't matter. Reach out to us and let us know what you want us to look at. Additionally, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, share with your friends. We are going to be trying to do this live next week. We've had some technical difficulties that have kept us from doing so, but next week this should all be sorted out. So this should be live where we can actually just hang out, interact with each other. Once again, if you love this video, give it a thumbs up, share with your friends. Head over to www.othotrade.ai to get started trading crypto.